What is cracking, everybody? It is MegapieMan here with another Jumpstart developer interview. Today I'm going to be talking with Zeebarf, and we're going to be talking about the Ballads of Reemus 2 Kickstarter. How are you doing today, Jay?
I'm doing great. Ready to do this.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is you do?
Well, name's Jay. I live in Canada. And up here, I make, basically right now, I make point-and-click adventure games, kind of the 2D, cartoony, LucasArts-inspired type stuff. And I've been kind of doing stuff online since 1999.
Yeah, you've got a big track record of stuff on websites like Newgrounds.com.
As I kind of cut my teeth with doing all that kind of like Flash stuff with Newgrounds. Started off making movies, and then I actually never really made a game. I made a game with Tom. He coded everything, and I just did the art. But it wasn't until much later that I actually got into the actual game design.
So what is Ballads of Reemus 2? This is the Kickstarter you're currently having.
Yes. Okay, so Ballads of Reemus, one of the first game series I developed, which was actually on Newgrounds, was called The Several Journeys of Reemus. It's kind of this story of this medieval exterminator. He's the younger brother of a dragon slayer who kind of gets all the spotlight and all the glory and fame. And so he's just kind of this lowly exterminator, and he kind of wants his 15 minutes of fame, wants to finally step out of the shadow of his big brother and kind of taste his own success. So this is kind of the story of this guy and his sidekick, Liam the Purple Bear, who's kind of like his biographer. He sings ballads about his heroic journeys. And so it's just a commercial version of that. I already did one called Ballads of Reemus, which kind of was just like a little snippet of this guy's life. But part 2 is going to basically take all those old games I made and just kind of reboot them in a sense with new story. Well, not like basically I touch on some of the similar story from that, but just expand on it in a lot of different ways with new puzzles, voice acting, and it's going to be a bigger, better retelling of kind of the classic tale I started.
So is it going to incorporate what took place in the original The Ballads of Reemus, the first buyable title you've had with these characters? Or, as you said, is it going to be more of a continuation of what you used with these characters on Newgrounds?
It will, a little of both. It's definitely going to continue on with some of the characters introduced in the first game. I think they're all kind of cool, and I'd like to bring them back and build on that Reemus universe. But I'm definitely going to go back to the old games too and kind of mine the things that I thought were good ideas. But just at that time, I didn't really have the time to spend on them, so I like to develop them a little more. There's a lot of good ideas in those old games that I really want to just really mine them for all they're worth and see what I can come up with.
I remember playing those games back in the day when I was more active on Newgrounds, and there's something that really struck me with them is that they always seemed to be very creative and very well polished for just Flash games you find randomly made by people on the internet.
Oh, thank you. That's what I was striving. At the time, it was like mostly those type of games were all, escape the room type stuff. And I really had a hankering to play like old school, the LucasArts kind of something that had real cartoony flair, like a higher level of polish and stuff. So that's what I was shooting for. So it's cool to hear you thought that.
So we talked a little bit about that you have made a Ballads of Reemus game before. Why do you feel now to go on and make a second one? Why do you feel like now is the good time in order to come up and make a Ballads of Reemus 2 and continuation of the story? The first one, I don't think the first one was a Kickstarter project. That was a project by yourself, correct?
Yeah, I started that with, I had a company called ClickShake Games with Steve Castro in Ohio, and together that was kind of our first attempt at a commercial project. For that first one, it just seemed like the right thing to do. It was like my most popular characters. It had a real following online. So we did that with nothing. Did that on completely our own dime. It took forever. And so the reason I want to do it again is I just feel like I want to do it the way I really envision it. And that old story, it deserves to be finished. It has a lot of cool stuff, and I don't know if I'll ever go back and finish it as a free game. So now's the time to do it. And Ballads of Reemus, actually I kind of thought it was done, but it's had this second life where it actually won best story at the Casual Connect conference in San Francisco in August. So it's almost has this renewed interest in it. And it was just in the Indie Royale bundle and things. It's starting to pop again. So everything's kind of coming together. And it just feels like, yeah, this is the one to just kind of run with again. See how far I can take it this time.
Now, why with this particular title do you feel like you would need to go out by yourself? Because you yourself are the one who's working on this title. This isn't a ClickShake title. Why deviate from ClickShake and work on this one by yourself instead of continuing work with them or trying to find somebody else to work with?
Well, basically ClickShake, we got to a point where it wasn't really financially viable to continue the way we were doing it. So I wanted to go more indie, and Steve kind of wanted to maybe go a little secure. So he had another project lined up, and I was kind of just wanted to take a run at something. So yeah, this was the one I decided to go with. And I don't know. Historically, I started by myself. I always did everything, and then it was only until later that last few games I had programmers. Then I partnered with Steve. We kind of went on a tear for 3 or 4 years there. But yeah, coming back to my roots in a sense.
So you're more of an artist than you are a coder, right?
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. One of the strengths and the reason I'm going to be able to do the coding in this one is because I'm using a program called Visionaire, which a lot of the German adventure games use, and it's really user friendly, and it's almost like it was designed for guys like me who just, we know what we want to do, and it's just kind of the tools are there to accomplish that goal, and you don't have to spend too much time, coding things from scratch.
How much money are you looking to raise right now for the Ballads of Reemus 2 on Kickstarter?
I'm looking for about $15,000. I already raised a little bit on my own, just through like friends, letting them invest into the project. So the 15 grand kind of represents what I need to, just kind of take it over the finish line, so to speak.
I remember a little while ago there was a Kickstarter for another title that you had on your own, I guess, account on Newgrounds for a small favor to make a big game out of that. Was that something you were part of? Was that more of a ClickShake thing?
It was a ClickShake idea. At the time, we just needed to do something. We were looking to do something, another creative original project. We had spent a long time on client work, and we really wanted to just jumpstart into something of our own again. And so I always felt like A Small Favor was a cool title that could have a different treatment done to it. So yeah, it was something I did with ClickShake. We tried it. We didn't quite get there. It got to about halfway, 45%, I think it died at. But there was a lot of factors in the reason why it didn't quite get there that I think. We were trying for a different. It started as a point-and-click game, and we were pitching it as something a little different. And so without a demo to really showcase what that is, it's kind of hard to convince people.
Now, the reason why I bring that up is because that Kickstarter failed. What are you doing to handle the Kickstarter for the Ballads of Reemus 2 differently to make sure that this one is more of a success than that one?
I'm asking for way less money to begin with, about half. So the other one died at around 13,000, so I am asking for 15. So I'm like, okay, well, if I could get to 13, I'm sure I could get to 15. It's kind of my thinking. But there's a weird point in my life when we did that Small Favor one, and seeing it kind of struggle. I just wasn't motivated to get out there and just pound the pavement as much as I am with this one. So I knew we were never going to have a demo for the other one, and I don't know, I think the wind went on my sails a bit during that campaign. Where this one, I'm way more active, and I'm talking to people. I'm actively going out and trying to talk to people and get interviews like this, and we have a marketing guy helping me out with trying to just find places to promote it, and just trying to be more engaged with the backers and the fans and stuff like that. So so far it's working. Everyone is pretty excited, and we're just under halfway there at this point.
That's definitely one of the most difficult things to do about a Kickstarter, trying to get yourself out there. And I do appreciate you doing this interview with me. Being someone who knew who you were as Zeebarf from the Newgrounds days, actually being able to get in contact with you and get to be talking to you on Skype is pretty surprising coming from my point of view.
Well, thanks. I am happy to do it.
So pretty much every game that I can think of that I've seen you make, they have all been point-and-click adventure games. What is it about the point-and-click adventure genre that you like so much and that you keep coming back to it?
It started to two things. One is when I played Maniac Mansion in the 80s, it literally changed the way I viewed games. It didn't feel like a game to me. I was a Commodore 64 guy. I had a billion pirated games on those discs. But when that one came through, it was like, wow, this is something different. This felt like an interactive movie. It blew my mind. I think we actually had to rent that one because it had so much protection on it. And we ended up, I think my grandpa ended up buying it for me. And I played it for like 3 or 4 years before, and I only finished it because I had a hint book, and it consumed my life. So much of my life is spent thinking about that game, and it just always stuck with me. So when I actually did a whole other bunch of stuff in the television world in Canada, and when that all ended, I was kind of left with, okay, what am I going to do now? I got to start again. And I always wanted to get back into the gaming world. I'd never really taken a stab at it yet, and so I played a game called Roast, and the interaction seemed so simple. It felt like, okay, this is something I could probably do myself, for one, which was one of the big things, and two, I just wanted to kind of, as I said, everything was escape the room type games. I was like, I really want to go back and just capture the spirit of Maniac Mansion and maybe make someone feel the way I felt playing those games and have a real kind of story base, something that was different at that point, even though it was an old idea. Just kind of resurrect that feeling of adventure and exploration and excitement that I felt.
Now, was that about the point where you decided that you were going to go forward and try to make games, or had you already decided previous to that point, previous to playing Maniac Mansion, that you already wanted to make games in the future?
I knew I always wanted to try making games. It was always, I had a plan. I had this weird thing where I want to make a TV show. I'll make a movie someday. I would like to make a comic book and a video game. And so it's in my life, my bucket list, so to speak, of the things I'd like to accomplish. And at the time, back then, I'd love to, but the programming, I never had the patience for it. I was always an artist first, and it just seemed impossible until, I discovered Flash. It was like, okay, well, this is within reach now. And I went a different direction. I went to TV for a bit, but when I came back, I was like, okay, now I would like to maybe take a run at this. And I really honestly just did it to do something. I never really thought anything was going to happen, but my first game was called The Visitor. It's about this little alien worm. I don't know what it is about that game. Maybe it was just because it was just purely done on passion and people can feel that, or it's just unique. It went everywhere when it became a viral hit, and then I started getting calls all around the world to make games. Comedy Central called me and said, "Hey, we really like your stuff. Do you want to make games for us?" And so I was like, "Okay, well, I guess I'm a game guy now." So I just said yes, without even really having any reason or any experience at making games other than that one, and I just kind of ran with it, and here I am, still doing it.
Being someone who kind of just made games, as you were saying, putting a lot of passion into games and making games at your own pace and basically whenever you feel like it, how was the transition going from that to actually doing it professionally as a job?
It's a little more stressful, I guess, because it's not like there's a lot more freedom when it's just kind of is what it is. If you make something that sucks, then you make something that sucks, you move on to the next thing. But there's a lot more at stake where, you feel the pressure to deliver something that's going to make money, because if you don't, you're pretty much finished.
Mm-hmm.
So, definitely, just the stakes are higher in a lot of ways, but I tend to thrive on that kind of stuff, so
you're a bit of
too much.
A bit of a risk taker.
Yeah, I've been living on the edge since 1999, so it's nothing new.
So, Reemus has always been a comedy series, and there's been a lot, in most of your series, there's always some comedy through in. What are some of the inspirations that you're drawing from when you're working on the Ballads of Reemus 2? You're drawing from, of course, from your original series. What are some of the things that were behind that series? What are some of the things that you're working on that are new for this series? That kind of stuff.
It's strange, it's just I just kind of do a lot of reading about weird things, and anything that strikes me as something that could be potentially made fun of or just outrageous, that's kind of where I draw my inspiration from, mostly from that kind of stuff. Like it's hard to say. I don't even know sometimes. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. Like the whole idea for this came out of nowhere. It was actually a family event when we were playing Balderdash, that game where you make up, answers. Like you get like a question, you got to make up a weird answer. And so I think the question was something like, a famous book. And I said, oh, it was The Several Journeys of Reemus, about a medieval exterminator or something. And I was like, that sounds like a game, something I could run with. So I just went and started drawing. And it's weird when I just draw, these characters just kind of come out. And it's almost like, it sounds stupid, but it's almost like they're telling me a story and I'm just relaying it. It just kind of comes from nowhere sometimes. It's weird.
Well, that's definitely understandable. So just kind of get caught up in what's going on, and your brain's kind of telling you to do things, and you're just going along with it.
Yeah, I tend to just listen to the muse and just go with the flow. So, yeah, a lot of it's just is what it is. It's hard to say where it comes from.
Well, that's pretty cool. As I've said before, one of the biggest things that I've really liked about the Remus series is the art design and just how everything kind of fits together in its own weird world and where things shouldn't necessarily fit together.
Yeah, when I was making it, I didn't, especially when I was new to puzzles, I didn't want to be hankered by, by some weird design choice where it's like, okay, I can't do that. So I just said, okay, the world of Remus is crazy. And part of it was like nature to me in the Remus world is going to be more technologically advanced than the people. So when you go into nature, they have, they already have donuts growing on flowers and nacho cheese stand, and just there's everything in nature is like almost like what you would find in a modern kitchen, but it's all out there. But the stuff they have in their town is basic and medieval.
That's something that I hear that leads into something that I hear that's criticized with point-and-click adventure games a lot, in the fact that a lot of them, they don't seem to make a lot of sense as into what you do. The kind of puzzles that make for point-and-click adventure games, I hear this argument a lot, that a lot of people say, oh, I cannot come up with the word that I'm trying to say. They seem almost too ridiculous. They're too obscure. They don't always make a lot of sense. How do you feel about when people say that kind of thing? Is that something in a world like the world that Remus lives in, where everything already doesn't make a lot of sense? Do you feel that Remus is able to still have some area of, okay, well, this does this because this and this happens, instead of just, well, we need to get this item to open this door or to do this or whatever, even though nothing seems to really be connected?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's it's justified criticism. Sometimes they're just lazy ideas, and I'm guilty as anyone of doing it sometimes. But I really strive to make a crazy world, but make it make sense within that world, and try to give the player as much feedback as I possibly can, so they're never, I don't know, I have no idea what to do. My first Remus game was like, here it is, deal with it. I didn't give any instruction. It was really hard. And then as I got along, I wanted it to be more fun than frustrating. So sometimes now they're criticized as being too easy because I almost give so much feedback that it's just, oh, okay, I understand now. So it's kind of finding that fine line of making it a challenging puzzle. But I really don't want it to be this obscure, bizarre solution that when you look at it, you're like, no, what? I want it to be like, oh, okay, I see how that could work within, real lateral thinking sense.
Right, because I remember games like the Neverhood, or even some of the stuff from Monkey Island. From what I'm remembering, some of it just didn't seem to make a lot of sense when you think about it. They just kind of threw you in an area, and they're like, "Okay, well, good luck."
Yeah, and I think that's when you're so close to the game. Because there's a lot of times I was like, oh man, that's so easy, and then I get someone to play it, and they like have no idea what they're supposed to be doing. And it's like, oh wow, okay, I really have to spell things out for people sometimes because they have to see what's inside my head. And I think the fun part is having it be weird and having a weird world, but you got to make it have some kind of sense to it. Or yeah, that plant eats something and spurts out red goo, and it makes sense within the world. So you're like, okay, now I know how to solve that puzzle. If I need red goo, I do that, and. Yeah.
Is there anything in particular that you're going to try to do differently with Remus 2, or is it just going to be more of the same idea? I don't mean that in a bad way, of course. I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean, like, is there anything in particular that you're going to try to change, or are you just going to try to keep it a traditional point-and-click adventure?
The number one thing that I want to change that I didn't like about the first one was I would create these kind of unique environments, and because of time and budget, we didn't really have time to really delve into what it was. So, you know, there'd be like a swamp, but you'd be like 3 clicks and you'd never see that swamp again. And it always bothered me. It just felt like a waste of time that I even created that environment. Like, you're through it in a heartbeat. So I'd like to ramp up the idea of exploration in this game, where if you're in an environment, there is a puzzle to do, but if you want, you can just kind of stop and smell the roses and wander around and maybe find some secrets and some hidden puzzles. I really want it to feel like a bigger adventure this time, where, you know, you're kind of in control of what you'd like to see instead of just, here, solve this puzzle. Okay, now we're in the next scene.
Right.
That's probably my number one thing. I mean, right now I'm working on trying to make the town as robust as possible, so you could like really visit every store if you wanted to. And the challenge in that will be to keep people on the straight and narrow and knowing what they're supposed to do, having such an open world.
Right. Now, making a point-and-click adventure game is, in this day and age, at this time period, is sort of an up-in-the-air thing. We had a couple years ago, or at least a year ago, before really games like The Walking Dead came out and was a huge success with its really in-detail storytelling, point-and-click adventure games were few and far between, at least that I knew of, that had got really popular. And I was talking with... I remember I was talking with Jim Walls when I was interviewing him about his Kickstarter project that unfortunately they ended up canceling, and then they tried continuing, but they ended up canceling that. That it's a dangerous time to be trying to make a point-and-click adventure game, because it's up in the air as to whether people will really receive it well or not. What do you feel about that? Do you feel like making a point-and-click adventure game is a bit of a risky thing to be doing at this point in time where the video game industry is?
Definitely. It's kind of a real niche market. If you just make the wrong thing that doesn't connect with the adventure community, yeah, you're done. So, yeah, but that's kind of the nutball I am. I just throw it out there and hopefully people respond to it. I mean, I had done so many free ones that I see the potential, and I know that there is an audience for what I do. And I don't know, I just have this belief that it'll eventually get there. I just like doing them so much that I'm willing to take the risk, I guess. See what happens.
Now, I always like to try to ask this whenever I remember to ask this, but why go to Kickstarter? Being someone who has worked in the industry before and would probably have connections with people who could get publishers and whatnot, having worked with ClickShake, having other people in the business that you already know, why go to Kickstarter and try to fund this whole thing through crowdsourcing instead of going and trying to find something a little bit more, I guess, concrete?
Just from the sheer fact that I'm so unconnected in the industry. You know, I don't really know where to go. I've literally one man in a basement in Canada, and it wasn't even until I went to San Francisco for that Casual Connect that I really even met anyone else. And I've just been so in my own juices here, stewing, so to speak. It just felt like that's my only option at this point. I don't even know where to begin, and time was of the essence for me, where I just needed to know now if this was going to fly or not. So I just went with Kickstarter. And it came to Canada. I don't know. The planets aligned in a sense. Because before this, I didn't have the option of doing a solo Kickstarter. And then suddenly I was like, well, I'm going to try this game, try to get some investment just through friends, start it. And then Kickstarter, the opportunity arose, so I decided to jump on it and see what would happen.
Mm-hmm. Do you have ideas of price points or of the distribution platforms, or is it too early for that kind of thing?
It definitely from what I've seen, the $15 price point seems about right for the adventure games. Now I gotta step up and make my games bigger than they have been, so I'm prepared to do that. And distribution-wise, sites like GOG.com, and I've been talking with Wild Tangent and places like that. The first game I just kind of did, and we threw it out there, and who knows, it did okay for the amount of marketing and distribution we had. But yeah, for this one, I definitely want to try to expand my horizons. You know, if I can get on Steam, then that'd be amazing. But we'll see what happens.
Now, this might come off as a little bit of a weird question, but as of right now, pretty much all of the games that I know of that you have made have all been for the PC. And we've seen with point-and-click adventure games such as The Walking Dead that it is possible to make a good point-and-click adventure game. It is possible to make that transition to consoles. Do you have any plans of taking Reemus to your home console, or is that just something that you're not able to do, you don't know how to do, or you just don't want to do?
It's more that I just don't know how to do it. Visionaire right now is going to be coming out for mobile platforms as well as Mac and Linux, so I'll be doing all that. Basically, whatever I can do, I will do. And we'll see how it does. So it'll be able to go to all that stuff, and if people really like it and it's well received, then I'll definitely look into trying to get it on consoles and stuff. But yeah, it's just not really something I don't even know what to do at this point. So I'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
That's very understandable. You want to try to go out and do something and end up not working out after putting a bunch of work into it.
Yeah, I might as well just try to make the best game I can for PC and the other platforms, and then go from there.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jay, for joining me today on this episode of Kickstart. Is there anything specific you want to say or you want to give out about the Ballads of Reemus 2 before we wrap this up?
I think it's going to be my best adventure game yet. So if you want to jump on it, do it now. One of the reward tiers is that I will put you in the game as a character, and people have been starting to get on that. And if you do it, I'm drawing you right now so you can see what you're going to look like. So you can go on the Kickstarter and see the 3 people that have done it. Newgrounds just jumped on, so I'm doing a tank man character for them. So we'll see.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again very much for joining me for this Jumpstart developer interview, Jay. For the Ballads of Reemus 2, do follow the links in the description, those of you watching, and you can go to the Kickstarter and send him some cash so he can make this game. Do you have like a Twitter or a Facebook or some way that people can keep track of you and the progress of the game as it goes?
Yes, everything is basically Zeebarf. Zeebarf. That's my Twitter. I have a Facebook page. Zeebarf.com website, so it's just look for that. That's my name and everything, so you'll find me.
I forgot to ask you, but before we go, quick, could you tell me why Zeebarf? Ever since I knew that name, now knowing your last name, I can kind of see where it comes from. Your last name being Ziebarth, but one of the things that's always struck me weird about the whole thing is just that name.
Yeah, well, Ziebarth in college, of course, you start to drink more and more and more, and then Zeebarf was born, and I've never been able to shake the name, and I've just embraced it. And I registered the name in 1999 as a joke, and just started like putting stupid cartoons up, and I don't know, it's just become a part of me where it's just part of my name now.
Started as a joke, and now it's just you.
Yeah, it's me, a joke.
All right. Well, it's like the 3rd time I said thank you for joining me, but thank you again for joining me.
Thank you.
All the links to all of your Twitters and following and the Kickstarter will be in the description for those of you watching. I've been Megapieman for this Jumpstart developer interview, and I will talk to you guys later.